We're talking about graphing polynomial functions and end behavior, and we want to graph polynomial functions using tables and end behavior. So here we have example 8, f of x equals x to the fourth minus x to the third minus 4x squared plus 4. And in this case, the big thing we want to pay attention to is the degree and the lead coefficient. So the degree comes from what the highest exponent is. So if we have 4, 3, 2, and 0, the highest exponent is x to the fourth. So that's going to be our degree. So our degree is fourth, and it's important to note that that's even. Next, we look at the lead coefficient. And the lead coefficient is the coefficient that's in front of the highest degree. So the highest degree is 4. The lead coefficient is the number in front. In this case, the lead coefficient is 1, and that is positive. So those two things are important. So when we go to graph this, we should expect that because it's even, our end behavior is both going to finish in the same direction. We're not really sure what's going to happen in the middle, but our end behavior is going to finish in the same direction. It's going to go up because it's positive. So one key point that we can get just from looking at our equation is we can get the y-intercept. The y-intercept is always the number that doesn't have the variable next to it. So that's going to be our y-intercept. And I'm going to put that one right here. And the y-intercept is going to be 0, 4. So we'll be able to graph that. And I want to count by ones on my graph. So we're going to say that this is 2, and this is 4, and this is -2, and this is -4, and this is -2, and this is -4, and this is 2, and this is 4. So I can graph the y-intercept as 0, 4. I don't know anything else about the graph, and I know that the end behavior is going to go like that, and all the other points I'm not sure about. So this is where I'm going to use my calculator, and we're actually going to type this into the calculator and see what it looks like. So we're going to type y equals, so we get the y equals function, and we're going to type this in. So we use our variable, which is the x button. Then we need to use the caret key and raise it to the fourth power. So we have x to the fourth. Then we have minus x cubed. And then we have minus 4x squared. Oh, it's got to be squared. And then we have plus 4. So then we have the function graph or written in x to the fourth minus x to the third minus 4x squared plus 4. And then we can graph it. So if we look over here, we predicted our end behavior. Our end behavior was going to go up to the up and up. That's what our end behavior of our graph did, up and up. Now we want to pay attention to what's happening on the inside of the graph here. So there's a few points that we need to find. We want to pay attention to the minimums and the maximums and the zeros. So I'm going to start here and just see what I come across. So as I start here, the first point I come across is a minimum. So on my table, I'm just going to write minimum here to make sure that I find that point. As I go through, the next one that I come to, it's either going to be a maximum or the y-intercept. So I'm going to write the y-intercept and I'm going to write max because I want to check for both of those things. As I continue, the next thing that I'm going to come to, the next important thing is going to be the 0. So I'm going to write 0 on my table to make sure I find that point. Then I'm going to come and find another minimum. We get down to the bottom there, that's going to be another min. And then the last point that I want to come up with, that is going to be the 0. So now it's going to be up to me and my calculator, and I'm going to just zoom in a little bit so we can see a better view of what's happening on the screen. So the first thing that we came to, we said, was a minimum, and this is the minimum right here that I want to find. So I'm going to go second calc, and there's going to be options for me to pick from, and I want to pick minimum right now. So I'm going to hit 3 on my calculator. Now the directions are right here. They say find the left bound. So I'm going to scroll to the left of the minimum. So I just need to be somewhere to the left of it. Doesn't matter where. And then I'm going to hit enter. And then it says go to the right of it. So then I'm going to go to the right, somewhere to the right of the minimum. And then I'm going to hit enter. And now it says guess where you think the minimum is going to be. So now I'm going to scroll back to where I think the minimum is. I think it's right about there. I'm going to hit enter. And then it's going to calculate it for me. And it says negative 1.09. So I'm going to write that into my table. Negative 1.09. And then my y value is 1.95. So I'm going to write those things, 1.95. So when I go to graph that, I can't, based off the graph that I have, I can't graph those points exactly. So I have to just kind of guess where they're going to be. So a little bit further than negative 1 and not quite to 2. So it's going to be right in there. Can't be exact about it. I just have to kind of guess, a good guess of where that point would be. So the next thing I come to is the y-intercept, which I have already from the equation. And then I want to check where the max might be. So I'm going to make this window a little bigger. And I want to check where the max might be. So I'm going to hit y equals. Oh, sorry, I'm going to hit graph because I want to graph it. And I want to hit second calc. And now I'm looking for the maximum. So I'm going to hit number 4. And the directions are the same. It says left bound. So I just need, if my maximum's here, I need to be somewhere to the left. So I'm to the left right there. I'm going to hit enter. Now it says right bound. So I have to go past the maximum to the right. So I'm past it. So now I can see that there's those 2 lines on there. And now it says guess. So now I want to guess where that is, and hit guess is right there. And it says it's x is equal to negative 0.80 to negative 6 and 4. So basically, that is the same point of the y-intercept already. So that is still 0, 4. So that's the same point. So I don't have to graph that. I already have it on my graph. Next thing, so we found the minimum. We found the y-intercept and the max were the same. The next one I want to find is the 0. So the 0 is going to be right here. So I'm going to go back to my calculator and I want to hit second calc. And now I want to find 0, which is going to be 2. So it says left bound, or just be left of the 0. So the 0 is here. My cursor is to the left, so I'm going to hit enter. Now it says right bound. I want to go to the right. So now I'm to the right of the 0. I'm going to hit enter. And then it says guess. Where do you think it is? I think it's there. It doesn't have to be exact, just have to get close. And it tells me that the 0 is at 1, 0. So I'm going to write in 1, 0 on 1, 0 for the point. And I can put the point on my graph too. So now we have 3 points in the end behavior with 2 points to finish up. So minimum, maximum, 0. Now I want to calculate another minimum. So I'm going to hit second calc. And I want to find the minimum. So that's 3. And the directions are the same again. Left bound. Well, I'm already to the left of the minimum, so I'm going to hit enter. Then it says right bound. I need to go past the minimum and hit enter. And now I want to find about where I think it is. That's where I think it's going to be. Hit enter. And it tells me that my minimum is going to be at 1.84 and 4.31. And again, we can't graph that exactly based off the grid that we're given, but we can get pretty close. So 1.84 is not quite 2. It's a little bit less than 2. And 4.31, that's negative 4.31. Negative 4.31 is a little bit below 4. So it's going to be right about there. And then the last point I have to calculate is the 0. So the 0 will go back to second calc. And the 0 is number 2 on there. So hit number 2. And again, it says left bound. I'm already to the left. My cursor is already to the left of where I think the 0 is going to be. So I'm going to hit enter. Then it says go to the right of the 0. Hit enter. And then it says guess. Where do you think the 0 is? I think the 0 is going to be right about there. And it says it's 2.38. So 2.38. And negative 1 times 10 to the negative 12th. So basically that's just 0. And so when I go to graph it, I just need to be 2.38. So 2.5 would be right in the middle. So just a little bit less would be where the 0 is located. And then all I have to do is just sketch a graph that goes through those points. So I know my end behavior is going to start up here, work its way down to the minimum, go to the y-intercept, which also happens to be the maximum. Then it's going to come back down through the 0, go down to the minimum, and then it's going to go back up through the 0 and then head up to infinity. So my end behavior is going in the same direction for both because it's an even degree with a positive lead coefficient.